You know, it's not just children who play the blame game. We live in a world where it's pretty quick to try to pass off any responsibility we may feel in a litigious society especially. You know, I trip and fall and I blame your yard care for it and sue you. Not suggesting this is the way you should behave. I'm simply saying this is what happens. We want to blame somebody for something that happened that may or may not be their fault, and we're quick to point fingers. Well, the disciples were no different whatsoever. The whole beginning of chapter 9 of the Gospel of John is the disciples seeing a blind guy and saying, whose fault is it that he's blind? Did his parents sin? Did he sin? How'd this happen? Jesus skips completely over that and says, no, this happened so that God could be glorified. It's like, yeah, I've always wanted to be an object lesson in the Jesus teaching. Seems like a really cool thing to be blind until I was an adult so Jesus could. And I don't think that's what Jesus is saying. Everything that we face in life, whether we realize it or not, every challenge, every choice, every moment that we both fail and succeed are opportunities for us to discover more about who we are and about what it looks like to make mistakes, what it looks like to be responsible for making mistakes, and then how to respond to those mistakes and take responsibility ourselves. And that transformation that happens as we take responsibility can be to the glory of God. Remember when that guy was a really bad guy and he met God and somehow he was transformed and made new, whoever that guy was that you've got in your mind right now. Sometimes, we point to people whose lives have radically changed, have been transformed. And isn't that the glory of God when we see transformation really happening all around us all the time? I think it's kind of a miracle. I watched at the parsonage, beautifully landscaped. I gathered Dave planted lots of flowers before I moved in, and now those bulbs are starting to send up little shoots, and there's the promise of what will be. The daffodils have already, before I realized the promise of the daffodils, they were already blooming. So it's like, oh, crud. But there's other things in my garden beds, your garden beds, the garden beds, that are popping up and offering a promise. You see, Jesus turns this around and says, blindness doesn't have to be the end. There's another way. There's a larger way. And that larger way is even in our mistakes, even in our errors, even in our sinning, even in our brokenness, our finding the way can make us. The best lessons I learn in life, maybe you don't this way, but the best lessons I learn in life are when I make a really big flub up, a mistake, and I realize my mistake, and I come back from it. Those are the lessons that I usually don't repeat. There are a couple of them that I repeat. You know how you feel after you've eaten just one too many pieces of pizza? And you say, I'm never doing this again. Never doing this again. And maybe the next time you have pizza, it's like, okay, I remember that last time. But then the time after that, there's pizza. And you say, oh, I can have another piece. Maybe even two. And then you feel that gross, bloated feeling that happens from, 17 pieces of pizza. Stop at 16, James. Just stop. One pizza is enough. And those are the little mistakes. It's easy to point to those little things that we should learn from. But there are bigger things in our lives. That time that we thought we were being funny and we hurt somebody's feelings and really broke that person a little bit. And it was never quite the same when we were hanging out with them again because of that quick laugh that we were trying to elicit in a conversation. We said something insensitive. That's a pretty quick way to learn some lessons. And the sad thing is, both people in that instance learn a lesson. You learn a lesson, hopefully, not to say quick things that appear in your head that sound cool until you say them out loud and they don't sound cool at all. And it makes that person who was hurt less likely to take a risk again of trusting somebody enough because somebody might say something that would actually push them over an edge. That kind of thought is what happens when mistakes happen. We learn from them, but the lessons are hard and difficult. So Jesus heals a man, and he does so in a way that is very unusual. He makes a mud pie and then puts it in the guy's eyes. I don't know, that just doesn't sound sanitary to me. Jesus spit or not, somebody spit used to make mud, put it in my eyes. This doesn't sound like a plan. And yet Jesus says, listen, I put some mud in your eyes. You should probably go wash that off. And he does. And he sees. He sees. The bad thing about this, it's really a great thing, but the bad thing to the people who are all about the rules, who are sure they know what's right, is that Jesus made a mud pie on the Sabbath. Oh my goodness. Not, wow, this guy sees. This is amazing. It's, wow, he made mud on the Sabbath. That's work. That's bad. Should never do that. Should have waited till Monday to make a mud pie and put it in the guy's face. That's what should have happened. That's what the rules people say. So, they want to discredit Jesus, making mud pies. The guy is blind. They go talk to first they interview the blind guy. You heard about that. What happened. And then, we didn't read this part because there's a lot, but I want to let you in on a little secret here. And by the way, you can read John chapter 9, verses 1 through 41 anytime you want. But you know what happens next? They decide this interview with this guy is not helpful at all. Let's call his parents in. And so they call his parents in, and they say, listen, was your son really blind, or was he faking it so he could pretend like he got healed? No, we don't know about the whole healing thing, but we know he was born blind. That's all we know. Are you sure? What about this? All we know, born blind, now he sees. Don't know how that happened. Not interested. Why? Because it's much easier to equivocate than it is to stand up for the truth when you're being face down. And those Pharisees, the religious people, this story is not just about us who get our sight back. It's a cautionary tale. Don't become all about the rules. When you get so caught up in the rules, you can't see the miracles of God that are happening right in front of you because you are so busy looking for a rule breaker. Oh my gosh, they came to church 5 minutes late. Who cares? They came. They're here. If you're one of those people, this was not a blaming moment. Please, this was not a blaming moment. Thank you for being an example. See, you come 5 minutes late, and James can use you for a positive example about how good it is to come a few minutes late. Because you came. You're here. We celebrate that. But for rule breakers, sometimes, maybe you've never experienced this. I certainly have when I wasn't a pastor, although I've experienced it as a pastor too. But, you watch somebody come in a little late, and there are certain people in the church who are all about the rules. 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock or whatever time worship starts, that's what it's all about. So they see somebody come in, and you can just see that look that they give. They turn over, and it's like, see how they're not as righteous as I am? If they were only as righteous as I was, they'd have been here at 9:59. But, it's the burden I carry of being super righteous. Being here at 9:59, that's what it's all about. Never mind that they're mean to everybody else all the time, including the person who came in at 10:05. I know that's not Doolin, because we're a friendly church. You already said that on the front page. Doolin is a friendly a caring congregation, empowered by God to do love. That's a summary. I know it's a paraphrase. The truth is, they try to find a way. Rule folks are trying to find a way to get this guy in trouble. Start with him, then his parents. His parents won't give him the right answers, so they call him back in. Dude, come on, level with us. Tell us the truth. This was another piece that Sunita read to you. Tell us the truth. You weren't really blind. You didn't really come to see. Who is this Jesus guy anyway? We know that he's not a good guy. And he says, well, I can see, I think he's a prophet. And you can see this man's faith starts out as, I was blind, mud in the eyes, something we're all looking for. Wash, see, but don't see fully yet. Just see Jesus as Jesus. I don't know anything. It's just Jesus did this. Now Jesus is a prophet. Oh, this is just really riling up the rules people. What do you mean he's a prophet? He's got to be evil. You know why? Because he broke our rules, and our rules are inviolate. Rule breaker. Yeah. You 1005 people, we're going to put you on trial next week. So don't do it again. See? Rules and what they can do to us. I'm not saying some rules aren't good. You know, don't murder your neighbor. That's a good rule. Keep it. But don't be 5 minutes late to church. That's not a rule. Let's let that rule go. So they interview him, and he says, the funny thing is we miss this part because there's a little funny part when they interview him that next time. He says to them, I can only imagine, not to poke fun at them, is it that you really want to believe in Jesus? Is it that you want to follow him too? Let me tell you about him. And they're like, no, we're not following blasphemers, breakers of the rules. Get out of here. And they kick him out. They say, we don't want you ever in the synagogue again. Now, if we got the ushers, and they're pretty serious people, don't ever make me call the ushers on you. They are some serious people. But imagine I call the usher because you're a little out of line. They drag you out the door. You just say, I just want to go back to that church again. I'll find another one. But if you're a member of the synagogue and they kick you out, guess what happens? You lose all your business connections. You're not allowed to talk to your family anymore. You are nobody. You go from being somebody who was a part of the synagogue, a part of a community, to isolated. Your family can't talk to you anymore. You can't be a part of everyday conversation. Your relationships are all gone. So they've kicked him out. He doesn't belong to anybody anymore. He doesn't belong to his parents. They're not his parents anymore. He's not their son anymore. Everything that mattered in his life, gone. That's what happens in this story. And into that moment comes Jesus once again. And Jesus, says, hey, do you believe in the Messiah? And the guy said, yeah, show me who he is. Well, you know the guy you're talking to? That's who he is. And he said, Lord, I believe. In a 41-verse window, a man goes from blind to receiving his sight and thinking some guy named Jesus did it, to, well, he's a prophet, to, he's the Messiah. And he changed my life. 41 verses. Imagine that's your story. Every one of us is always ripening. Every one of us always has the potential to grow, to learn, to see ourselves in new and different ways, to be transformed. Every one of us can move along that process and be changed. Every one of us. And that's powerful. Now, that is the main part of the story with the blind guy. But it slides from the blind guy back to the religious people who now confront Jesus. And essentially, to paraphrase what Jesus said, there are none so blind as those who will not see. If you are certain you are right all the time, I want to tell you this is a cautionary tale. Whenever you feel certain that you are right all the time, read John chapter 9, verses 1 through 41, because those Pharisees were sure they were right. And you and I today, of course, we got 2,100 years of thinking about it going on in the church to think about it, but we're pretty sure the Pharisees were not right, and Jesus was right. But when you're sure you're right, there's really, really, really a good chance that you're not, especially when it's about religion. Don't become someone who is certain they were right, who has a clear set of understanding of the rules and is going to enforce those rules no matter what. Because if you enforce them no matter what, a blind man would never have seen. If Jesus had followed the rules. He didn't. He had mercy and grace and love and healing, because what God really wants for us all, 41 verses tell us, is that we be healed, that we learn to see, that we come to know the truth, that God loves us, and the people like us, and the people not like us, and not from the same place as us, and who don't think like us, don't worship like us, don't worship at all. God's especially fond of all those people too. So before we get all rulesy, and believe me, United Methodists know about rules. We have a rule book, the discipline, that is thicker than the Bible, baby. Thicker than the Bible. We know how to write some rules. And every 4 years, we write some more. And put some more in that book. We have got rules all over the place. But don't let those rules get in the way of finding healing in your life. Don't let those rules get in the way of opening the door for somebody else to learn how important love is for them. Because God wants us all to be healed, all to be whole. So, remember the cautionary tale of the Pharisees and the man born blind. I guess, stop blaming people this week. Someone cut you off in traffic. Maybe it's your fault. I wasn't driving fast enough. I wasn't keeping the 3-inch distance between the people in front of me and behind. That's the way it works in Northern Virginia. You don't want to be cut off, you better be right there. But hope they don't stop suddenly. Or then suddenly you're, well, that's neither here nor there. I was once told that a turn signal when you're trying to get into a lane is a sign of weakness in Northern Virginia. That is not what I was taught when I was learning to drive. It's not what I was taught. So, follow the rules, use the turn signal, even if it's a sign of weakness, and learn to love your neighbor.